G'day, here's the Health Committee. You won't find this anywhere else. Now, MP Rempel says at first here, let's get some unity, let's get this moving forward. It's been a week. The Liberals are stalling on it. You know, I'm trying to see the good light on it, but they're definitely stalling. And, well, here it is.
That this
Let him
committee
speak
be
himself.
empowered to order his or her appearance from time to time. So, Mr. Chair, it's now been over a week since this matter was first discussed in this committee. I just firmly believe that we need to move on with this. I realize that members of the committee last time, certain members of them, I think that they tried to extend the meeting so that this wouldn't come to a vote. So I just think we need to move on. We've been prorogued for some time. The documents that I've mentioned in here for production are all relevant to the study. And we just need to move on with this. This is a very reasonable motion. It allows all members of the committee to look at areas related to the pandemic that are of interest to them and to their community or to their broader constituency groups. It allows each political party to have one witness. It's per panel, and we're going to have that documentation that we need as parliamentarians to review the government's response. I would just like to say, you know, I'm in Ottawa today. I feel for the restaurants in the city that you know, have perhaps taken out the last of their savings to sort of stay open over the last few months. They're shut down again. Toronto, you know, a large part of Quebec is in this situation. And I think about my home province of Alberta, where we're seeing cases on the rise too. And it's very incumbent on this committee for us to dispose of this matter and to move on and to study this so that we can come up with a plan for Canadians. I'm really hoping that members of this committee will allow this motion to come to a vote today, that we can move on with life, and that given that members of the committee have had over a week to review the substantive components of this motion, that we can just move on with life. So I would encourage all members to support this. I think it's in the best interest of all of our constituents. I purposely tried to word it in a way such that it's nonpartisan. We're just looking for answers, and we're just looking for a way forward. So I come to you with a spirit of collaboration, that we can work together across party lines to get some answers and provide the government with a path forward, some recommendations that they could look at, and possibly give Canadians some hope, especially those who are being faced with, you know, isolation and more shutdown. So that is the spirit of this motion. I strongly hope that the Liberals don't filibuster it this time, that we can vote in favor of it, and that we can move on and start planning our study. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Rempel-Garner. I note that you keep referring to this time and that this matter was not voted on before. This is a new motion, and in the spirit of collaboration, I would appreciate getting a copy of it so I could review it.
Sure.
And I believe the other members would prefer a copy as well.
Sure. So, Mr. Chair, I can send that along. What I've done, because it's my understanding that some members of the Liberal Party perhaps didn't want a prescriptive list of all the study areas. So all I've done is remove the prescriptive list from the motion that I put forward on Friday, because the opening text of of the motion that I presented a week Friday already includes all areas related to the pandemic. So, and then I did add a line related to every party having at least one witness per panel. I think that that's pretty reasonable and pretty standard operating procedure. And I think that that'll give clarity to you as chair for how to put witness panels together on this. And, you know, in this way, then every member can, you know, decide what's important to them. Every political party can decide what's important to them in the study of this. I know certainly for me, I think a lot of the issues that were related in the document production order were material to me. I The other thing that I believe I removed one paragraph related to ventilators because it was already included in one of the document production orders anyways, just for clarity, but that was it. So it should be pretty easy for the government to support this. There's nothing in there that's, I think, inflammatory language or partisan. This is really just about getting answers and moving forward in a productive way for the Health Committee.
Okay. Thank you. And have you sent that motion to me? And
I've been talking, so no. To be honest with you, Chair, I wasn't sure if you'd recognize me first or not. So I'm happy to do that while we're sitting here. But it is in order.
Point of order. No, I don't. I'm new to all this, and I've been here a year, but I'm not sure all what you can ask a point of order. But can I ask for us to have 5 minutes to discuss this? I don't even remember everything that was in that motion. I think we have to look at it a little before we decide what to do with it. Is it possible to recess for 5 minutes to get a copy of this and to read it again?
On that point of order, Chair.
Go ahead.
I will say something. If this is a ploy to permanently suspend the meeting today, I would not be in favor of that. And I just want to register my objection that if this is to give you direction to shut the meeting down so that we don't have to come to a vote, as we've seen in other committees, I don't support that. And I think that would be fairly bad. I'm happy to suspend for 5 minutes to give me a chance to send it around to folks. But I would ask that you commit to reconvening at 11:30 a.m. Eastern at the latest. And I just want to say to my colleagues, come prepared to these meetings. Like I understand that Liberals may have sent motions around, and I'm assuming that had they got the floor, they might have moved this. And I was prepared to amend that motion on the fly. People should be coming to these committees prepared. So when I walk through the changes that I made to a motion on Friday, you should be able to do that on the fly too. So if we can, I'm happy to suspend to 11:30, but beyond that, we need to move on with life.
Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Rempel-Garner. Mr. Kilroy, please.
I think everyone here is trying to come together in the spirit of collaboration and cooperation and not just make them hollow words. But when I hear certainly a lecture coming from Michelle Gardner-Rempel on being prepared, it's hard to be prepared for motions when you get them while you're live on television. And there seems to be a complete and utter lack of credibility by saying, be ready for something that I'm going to send you while you're on Zoom. I find it utterly ridiculous.
On that point of order, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, frankly, a committee business meeting, anybody can move anything they want on a study. So it's actually our job as parliamentarians to be ready. So that was a little patronizing.
Not at all.
It actually, and also a little ridiculous to think that you can't come prepared to a committee business meeting, especially when I walked through what the changes were. Anyway, I think the best course of action forward, I would support a 10-minute recess to 11:30 a.m. I will send this around, and then perhaps members can review that quickly and we can move forward.
Mr. Chair, may I say something?
Thank you, Ms. Rempel-Garner. Mr. Kilroy, go ahead.
The only way for us to clearly understand the motions that come for us is actually having time to look at them before they come. Now, if the member is saying that we should all be Kretzkin, then that's a metaphysical discussion we probably should have at a later date.
Mr. Chair, just on this point of order.
Mr. Barler, please go ahead.
If I may, Ms. Rempel-Garner's point here is this motion is 98% what was presented to this committee more than a week ago. I have it in front of me. I followed along with the changes that were made. So for Mr. Kilroy to say that this is somehow a whole new motion that we just threw on the floor here today, I think is completely disingenuous. As members of this committee, we are dealing with one of the most important issues all of our constituents want us to be talking about. This motion is part of that. They want to see a strategy, a runway to how we get through this, but that also includes to how we got here. This is a matter of trust. So this motion is very detailed, and it is almost identical to the motion that was tabled in this committee more than a week ago. So for the other members of this committee from the Liberal Party to be saying that we're somehow submarining them or dropping this dictionary upon them, I think is really unfair. And to say this is some sort of Kreskin mind reading ploy, I don't think is fair. I think if we take 5 or 10 minutes, as Ms. Rempel Garner has offered to do, to review this motion and the small changes that are as part of this motion that was tabled on this committee more than a week ago, I think that is totally fair.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair?
on that point of order, if I could, it's
yes, go
great.
ahead.
It's great that Mr. Barlow has it in front of him. We don't. Now, I don't know if it's been
Point of
sent
order,
around in English
I have
or
the
French.
previous. Sorry,
Mr. Barlow doesn't.
Excuse me,
motion.
everyone.
Previous
Mr.
motion.
Fisher has the floor.
He doesn't
We-
have the motion.
We
in front
don't
of him.
have
Preview.
this, Mr. Chair.
Mr.
I'm not
Mr.
sure if
Fisher has the
Mr.
floor.
I'm not sure if Mr. Theriault has this in front of him
No.
in French. Mr. Barlow says he does have it in front of him. That's great. We would like to have this in front of us in English and French.
I have the
Mr.
previous
Chair,
motion in front of me.
Mr. Chair, yeah,
Mr. Go ahead.
Ridiculous.
so every word is important. We need to review it. And with due respect, with Mr. Torrio, if it's in bilingual, they need to read in French too. So I just want to ask Mr. Rempel, it's a bilingual, and because we have to respect our other party too, Bloc Québécois, which Mr. Torrio
Yes.
needs to read in French.
Yes,
Mr. Chair,
just on
Mr.
that
Chair.
point of order, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, I'm going to recognize Mr. Davies first. He hasn't had a chance to speak.
Thank you. Well, just first as a matter of procedure, it seems to me that people are just jumping in, and it seems whoever puts their hand up and starts talking is being recognized. I saw Miss Sidhu had her hand up before Mr. Fisher jumped in, and yet you recognize Mr. Fisher. So not to pick on Mr. Fisher, it's just an example. But the first thing I want to get straight here is, what is the speaking order and how is that determined? It can't just be whoever grabs the microphone and starts talking. And you're not respecting either the raised hands list or the order of visual calling on the screen. It just seems to be that the speakers are determining who gets recognized. So I'd like to register, for all of our sakes, we need to come to an agreement on a respectful, appropriate speaking order. Second of all, to the point of order at hand, I also think we need to decide as a committee how we're going to proceed on this. Ms. Rempel Garner is absolutely correct. There is no requirement that any motion that is moved at a business meeting relating to business has to be in writing. There is no requirement. Now, if the committee wants to make such a requirement, we certainly can, but there is no such requirement. Again, to Ms. Sidhu's comment, it doesn't have to be bilingual because it doesn't even have to be in writing. Mr. Theriault could raise a motion from the floor if he wished, and he could raise that in French. Now, what I would suggest is it's very helpful for all of us on any kind of motion, particularly one that has any length or complexity, for it to be reduced in writing. You know, what we typically do in these meetings is once someone has moved the motion from the floor orally, we then take a moment to make sure that the clerk reads it out and we all write it down ourselves so that we have it in front of us. That is the way this committee has operated. Now, if you want to have a rule that motions have to be submitted in writing prior to the meeting or not, then we can make that decision. But that is not in the standing orders of this committee presently, and I think that needs to be emphasized. I also want to say there's nothing wrong, I don't think, with my colleague Mr. Pawlowski's request. If a motion does come and it's in writing, and we get it in writing and it has complexity to it, absolutely we can take a moment to talk about it. But I would like to say that I would like to have those discussions on the record. Now, if a party needs to caucus for a period of time, I totally respect that. I have an easy caucus for myself. So that's, you know, if the Liberals or the Conservatives or anybody else needs to do that, I'm fine with that. But I guess to sum up what I'm saying is, I think it would be good for all of us if we come to an agreement on how we're recognized as speakers and how motions will be presented to each other, because it is true that we all deserve to have the motion clearly in front of us and clearly understood in both official languages prior to having a sensible debate on it.
Thank you, Mr. Davies, and we'll we'll cut the debate off here. Pardon me. Firstly, Mr. Davies, I appreciate your comments regarding recognizing speakers. We do have a hand raised function on the participants panel. I was interpreting that to reflect the regular speaking order, and not on intermediate points of order. I'm doing the best I can to identify people when they identify they want to respond to the point of order. On the point of order, and in the spirit of collaboration that Ms. Rempel Garner mentioned, and the fact that we do need to properly review the motion before we proceed, we will suspend. I will suspend for 1/2 hour, and we will resume in 30 minutes. Thank you very much. We are no left
that the Standing Committee on Health commence a study on the emergency situation facing Canadians in light of the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that this study evaluate, review, and examine all issues relevant to this situation. And that this study begin no later than October 20th, 2020, that the committee table its findings in the House upon completion, that the government provide a response to these findings within 30 sitting days, and that evidence and documentation received by the committee during its study of the Canadian response to the outbreak of the coronavirus commenced during the first session of the 43rd Parliament be taken into consideration by the committee in the current study, and that each party will be entitled to 1 witness per 1 hour witness panel and 2 witnesses per 2 hour witness panel. And that in order to fully study this emergency situation, an order of the committee do issue for all memoranda, emails, documents, notes, or other records from the Prime Minister's Office, the Privy Council Office, the Office of the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, Office of the Minister of Health, Health Canada, and the Public Health Agency of Canada concerning options, plans, and preparations for the global public.
Well, what do you think about this motion? Do you agree with it? I think most Canadians, we should be looking at what happened and moving forward so this doesn't happen again, I believe. I know this is a health crisis. This is about every Canadian. No one is exempt. So everyone should be involved in the process and looking it forward, not just 30%. Like, subscribe, and have a good day.